Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time, a Wave original presented by Perplexity. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. It is that time of week where we have a guest join us, coming to us live from the beautiful state of Connecticut, New Orleans East.
Oh,
Michael Smith, what's going on, brother?
He put the East in there. Bro, that's you just your range knows no bounds. It's unbelievable. You put the specificity,
I try, brother.
Bro. You know what you know about the East Beast? What you know about that?
See,
I bounced around a little bit now. You know, I was across the river, which, by the way, don't lose your thought. But you know, like people on the East Bank of the Mississippi call it cross the river. But so do the people on the West Bank. They call it cross the river too. But they really cross the river. So I used to live across the same river. Exactly, same river.
It's the same river.
We both across the same river.
But that's my thing about New Orleans folks, man. Y'all so damn provincial that like you would assume like if you say it across the river, it can only be one thing, right?
Yeah.
Like that is y'all's get down. But no, New Orleans is one of those places. I had a girlfriend in college who was from the East, and my dad being from Louisiana and all of that. Like New Orleans is one of those places that I know just enough about to make conversation, and I know just enough about to know y'all ain't playing around down there.
No. we invented about that life, about that action, about that life, standing on business. All of that originated in New Orleans. We just didn't necessarily call it that back then in the 90s. But then I lived in the 7th Ward too. And East Cross River 7th Ward. Yeah, man. But I appreciate that. You took me home with that one introduction. Speaking of home, like you being a product of both Atlanta and Houston, you know. So like, I wonder if what Bomani Jones would have been like if he'd have grown up in New Orleans, because you got so like you feel like a New Orleans dude in a lot of ways, man. I think you'd have fit right in New Orleans. You fit in anywhere. Well, you could adapt to any environment, but I feel like New Orleans kind of speaks to your soul a little bit.
Well, one thing, I would be better at fighting.
Wait. Don't be so sure, because I didn't learn how to fight till I was older. You know what I'm saying?
No. What happened when you got older was that you like technically learned how to fight.
Yeah.
Like you be out there doing the Jewish kung fu, right?
Right.
What they call it?
Krav Maga. Yeah.
Krav Maga, yeah. Like Max Kellerman does it because of course Max Kellerman would do it, right? Like if you know Max even a little bit, it is the combination of the two things that Max is riding for. Stronger than anything else.
Yes.
Fighting and Judaism. Yes. Right? Like it put those two things together. But a point that I make, and by the way, hashtag if you know, you know, I witnessed this myself with you. I ain't met a sucker from New Orleans yet. I ain't like there. You can't make it however many years in New Orleans that we talking about.
Yeah.
And you not have a little bit of something in it, right?
Yeah.
I remember that night I saw yours tested and you rose to the occasion in a way that I cannot promise that I would have been able to. I probably would have been inclined toward a little more negotiation, right? No. That water in you was like, nope. It's going to stop right here. It's gone too far.
Oh, man. No, you know what, man? Like, I wouldn't trade my upbringing for nothing. And as hard as I try, it's almost impossible to replicate it for my kids. Because, like, seriously, no, and I appreciate that.
And you and I have talked about this. You asked to talk to my father about this, in fact.
Right. It's like, because, you know, when you get to a certain tax bracket, it just gets really challenging to raise kids, not impossible by no means, but challenging to raise kids that are just comfortable. Because again, that's why I talked to Mac, because like that's what you got. I know that about you. Is like you could converse with, you know, the most high class of people, and you could, you know, be just as comfortable in the streets. You know what I'm saying? And so like that's what I appreciate most about New Orleans, especially when I grew up in New Orleans. It felt like an all black city. It was a majority black city. I won't insult present day New Orleans by trying to speak to present day New Orleans, which has evolved quite a bit since I grew up there and lived there, and obviously post Katrina, which is, you know, 20 years ago now. But when I was growing up, man, like, you know as much about New Orleans as anybody that lives there, let alone that didn't grow up there. you know what the culture was like back then, whether it was the music scene or whether it was the socioeconomic scene. Like, like I feel like New Orleans, rich in love was another thing that was born in New Orleans because man, I felt like I had everything, and my parents was definitely living check to check. So I just feel like it just gave me like a sensibility, a perspective that I wouldn't trade for anything. I just think, with all due respect to everywhere else, I just think the best, most grounded people come from New Orleans. If I may flatter myself by saying that.
Well, also my favorite thing in New Orleans is New Orleans have the most like sophisticated gangsters in the world. Not that every gangster in New Orleans is sophisticated, but it is entirely possible, man. That dude that just had that heat out on you in a second, you lucky he had to go read some poetry that night. You know what I'm saying? Like you lucky that he got to go. He got a book that he just can't put down. Listen, everybody in New Orleans living like that, but who might be living like that would surprise you.
The dude that'll bust your ass is the section leader for the marching band at Warren Easton. You know what I'm saying? like, don't get it twisted.
It's random. None of it, like, it doesn't make, like, it makes sense in its own way, but none of it makes sense according to whatever paradigm that you were coming in with from somewhere else.
Right.
That is my whole thing about it, man. You never know how it's gonna go. I had a dude in New Orleans last time I was there was for the Super Bowl. This blackjack dealer.
Oh man.
And man, he hit me with some game that was so simple but so dead on, right? And it was about whether or not you should hit on 16. Right?
Tell me more, because before you tell this story, we gotta put this into context real quick, because everybody has to understand why I just sat up in my chair in excitement. Because, and I could get off in a whole different tangent about just the on a deeper level, but I don't know that I've had as much fun in the last, I don't know what, decade as I have had sitting at the blackjack table next to this man right here at Aria in Vegas. Okay, so
that's what we do.
When Bo talks blackjack, I get excited. Bo won't hesitate to send me a fat ass chip just to flex when necessary.
So the thing that people need to understand, and now part of this, the purpose of this pod, man, me and Mike gonna talk about Around the Horn in a couple, so we kind of want to do like some reminiscence, but this is something for people to know, right? That boy Michael Smith had been on TV for like 10, 12, 13 years, something like that, and was still riding that, pushing that maximum. You just need to understand what kind of man that we are dealing with here, right? And so
demo model Maxima.
Yes, demo model Maxima.
Yes.
The Maxima was that thing when you got it, you just was committed in a way that was a little unnecessary given the directions that your life went in.
Fair enough.
So anyway, we go to Vegas for Summer League in 2019, and we there, and I am encouraging Michael Smith to, it's okay to spend a little more money, right? We could go ahead and do this. So we start playing blackjack, right? And so next thing I know, Mike Smith is going home, and now he's playing blackjack, getting ready for the next year when we come down there to play blackjack, because we make our annual move to play blackjack. So I'm at the Harrah's, right outside right down the street from the French Quarter in New Orleans, and I'm getting my ass handed to me, I would note. Anyway, I'm playing, and I'm talking to Buddy at the table, and we're talking about hitting on 16.
All right.
And he looked at me, and he got the New Orleans accent that I don't even want to do. You know what I'm saying? One, because I won't get it right. But two, if I do get it right, it'll be too much for these ladies. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, Buddy started talking to me, and he says, look, here's what I tell people about hitting on 16, okay? Look at me right now. Look what's in front of me. I got more money than anybody else here, right? I win more than anybody else here. And I hit on 16 every time.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you, the person that's probably going to win is hitting on 16. Don't you think you should hit on 16? The logic is irrefutable, right? Like that's how I feel like it comes up in those, like you talk to cats in New Orleans when they hit you with the game, it's like, that's right to the point.
It's hard to argue it. But speaking of that, don't you and I both always hit on 16?
Well, I always hit on 16.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, I think that's separate. There's two types of people in this world: people that hit on 16 and people that don't. right?
Yeah,
Like
but
it's like I would like to be one of the people that hit on 16.
let me tell you this though, man. I was in the Bahamas a couple summers ago and I was playing blackjack, and I'm sitting at was last summer actually, and I'm sitting at the table, and if I'm being honest, I am lit. And so I'm sitting there. We got this blackjack dealer that looked like 1997 Lauryn Hill. And she just kind of yeah. For y'all who don't understand just the totality of Lauryn Hill in 1997, can you imagine if Deion Sanders could hoop in the NBA too? You know what I'm saying? But anyway,
Oh my God.
so yeah, right. That's what we
Bingo.
that's what we talking about here. So I'm sitting there at the table, and she's just up there, and I'm looking at her. And next thing I know, this kid's maybe about 21, and he's asked the question about hitting on 16, and I was in that place. You know what I'm saying? Like I was in that zone, and I was talking to him, and I said, "Look, here's the bottom line about it, man. As you grow up and as you become older in life, you realize that you need to set your life up in such a way to minimize the number of decisions that you have to make. If you can just make some decisions about what you're going to do in some certain situations, you need to reserve your brain power for the stuff that really requires thinking. Find as many things in your life that you can that is reasonable, where if I see this, this is what I'm going to do, and I don't give it a second thought, right? So whether or not you hit on 16, you need to do that every time because the situation is no different, right?
Mm-hmm.
All it comes down to is if it's hitting 16, well, I mean, it's different because if the dealer is showing, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But but all the same, it's like you sitting there on 16, whether you hit or not, you need to do it every single time. I hit on 16 every single time. That's what makes sense. That's what the math says to do.
Mm-hmm.
However, what it really comes down to is how does it feel to you on that 16? It don't feel right to me.
Mm-mm.
To let that 16 sit there. If it don't feel right to you to hit on that, then you go ahead and you got to live with that. Now you're going to be living with worse outcomes in the end, but if that feeling is, most by and large, man, whatever you do, you got to live with the feeling that comes with it. And if you can live with that feeling of sitting on 16, but you can't live with that angst of playing on 17, then you go ahead and do it on 16, but you do it every single time, right? That is not a decision. Like the decision you made on what to do there is a decision that you've already made. This isn't wavering, You do it and you hold on it no matter what. And let me tell you something. L Boogie was looking at me, boy. L Boogie was like, "You are very wise." Like, hell yeah, I am. You know what I'm saying?
The doors of the church are open, and as a preacher's grandchild, I know not to get up and preach after somebody else had already preached.
But you feel me though? It can't be like this
Absolutely
time I'm gonna do 16. Next time, no.
That wasn't a blackjack lesson. That was a life lesson right there. That was.
I put them on game. I put them on some game for free, boy, for free. But speaking of games, I wanted to have Michael Smith on because last week was the final week of Around the Horn. And I thought about trying to get Tony on the show, but Tony was doing so many shows, and I knew that I record my show when I know he has something to do. And so it was like, that wasn't the time to do that. I went on with Tony on Friday. I got on his YouTube channel, Tony Reali, check that out, and hollered at him. But I wanted to talk about doing the show, and I wanted to talk about it with you for a couple of reasons. One, haven't had you on in a while. We always love this, right? Like that's number one. The people love it when Mike Smith make his return. But number two, I've told you this before. I don't know like how much you believe me, but it's the truth. I imagine that my man Rel is probably listening to this. My man Rel in North Carolina. And Mike, for people who don't know this, Michael Smith is a year older than me. We graduated from high school in the same year. When I am 23, 24 years old, and I ain't really got no money, and I just flunked out of graduate school. I'm freelance writing. I'm scraping it together. I'm trying to make it happen. This boy, Michael Smith, is writing for the Boston Globe. This boy, Michael Smith, is on Around the Horn, making it happen. He's going and he's doing E60. He's doing all of these things. And Rel used to hit me up. Rel's a couple years younger than me. And he would hit me up and be like, doesn't Michael Smith make you feel like you ain't really doing nothing over there? Right? Like, doesn't it make you feel like you need to step your game up? And so I looked at you not as competition, not as some nemesis, but honestly, like as a measure of inspiration. It's like, yo, man, this cat is out here doing it. I remember when I first became friends with Bruce Feldman. one of my favorite people in the industry. And he talked about being at the combine with you in like 04 and 05. And he was like, man, Mike Smith hit the room. He's talking to this guy. He's talking to that guy. He knows all those people. Like, you were that dude. And so to reach a point in my life where I was on like Around the Horn, it was like, man, we have reached a level of Michael Smith, right? Like it was for real. Thanks, that thing. But like that show, I've had time to think about this. I think I told you about this, but
wait, if you don't mind, because I don't know how far we would get away from what you just said. Can I respond to that real quick before you?
Sure.
If anybody doesn't lose his thought, it's you. Hold that thought about the show. I appreciate you saying that, and I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but I use you as an example so many times in conversations with people who might be struggling in their careers and where they are in their careers and going through challenges that have them kind of questioning the path that they're on. And I'm like, man, because you've told me that before, and I appreciate it then as much as I do now. If not more. But like, everybody's path isn't linear. You know what I'm saying? Like, we sitting here, right now, and like, you could take the Pepsi challenge with what you've accomplished and what you've done and what you've created and the brand that you've created and the voice that you have and the following that you have. You could take the Pepsi challenge with anybody in this game and the content that you put out with anybody. But your career didn't start off the same way as mine did. You know what I'm saying? You know, but it's like, but you got where you were supposed to be in due time. Shout out to CeeLo Green.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you became what you were supposed to become. Your talent was always there. Other people just had to catch up with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. They just had to come to recognize it. You just needed that opportunity. And I told you this the other day. We would kind of had a little mini session about Around the Horn, and I'll pass it back to you to kind of get into your thought. It's like there's Around the Horn, you know, let's call it BB, and Around the Horn, you know, and AB, as in before Bo and after Bo. You know what I mean? Like that was an inflection point in Around the Horn when you came on that show, and everything that spawned from that. Quite frankly, a whole 2 other shows spawned from you on Around the Horn. You know, so I appreciate you saying that, man. But I just hope one thing that people take away from what you said about how you view me is like, you know, to paraphrase a ball from Paul Rudd. Hey, look at us. You know what I mean? And our journeys and our paths, they might have been different, but my goodness, if you didn't still reach your destination and then some, despite, you know, how it might have looked when we was in our early 20s.
But I appreciate that, but I still want you to think about this, right? I got to Around the Horn when I was 30. Okay. That was still wild early, right? Yeah. Like did the path I take, was it linear? No. I still got to all those places really fast. And you had still been there. Hanging out around, posted up. Hey, let me show you around, big dog. Yeah, it used to not be like this over there, right? Yeah. Look, hey man, like, look, I appreciate you giving me the bump too, but you ain't got to do that, right? Like, you really were and continue to be in a lot of ways, like as a man, not just simply as a person on this, is like somebody to look at, like, man, I got to get like this dude, right? And so I get on Around the Horn, and in a lot of ways, it was like, okay, I'm here. This is cool, right? But I've had time to think. I think, as I told you, I did the commencement address at Prairie View a couple weeks ago, and maybe the biggest honor of my life. For those of you who don't know, and I have to remember this, man, I've been doing this for so long now that I can't assume that people know. Yeah, like what the thing is that I'm talking about. And so when I was growing up, my parents were professors at Prairie View. I went to high school in the town over. In many ways, it's where I grew up. Our house address is Houston Common, Texas, but this is where I went to school. This is where my parents work. You know, this is like,
that's home.
Yeah, and I think it's home in a way that landed with me a little bit more when I went and did this, because I got this kind of interesting thing about my life that I come to realize is, like, I don't have a lot of places that feel like home, because part of it is I got siblings, I got parents, I got all of that. Houston, Texas, all of that stuff, none of that is home to them, right? Like, for them, for my parents in particular, it's kind of like Miami was for me. It was this place I went to go do something right fast, but we had
Hmm.
some other stuff, some other stuff to do. That's how it was for them. But I wasn't at the age where you look at things like that. Like, this is home. So I graduate and my parents move. And so I don't make it back very much. And when you go back to Houston, I'm not out there so much or whatever. And so I was back there and I was like, nah, man, like, I'm riding around campus for the first time in, God knows how long. I'm seeing what's new. I'm seeing what's already been there. I'm running into like a woman who was my mother's secretary in 1987,
Mm.
right? I'm running into folks I went to high school with, teachers, all these things, and former like professors who happen to still be there, who knew me when I was this big and all of that stuff. And I'm like, oh man, like I'm getting a home feeling that I don't get that many places, just because of the nature of what it was. And then, and people being like legitimately happy to see me
Oh
in
yeah,
that
I
way,
bet.
right?
I
And
bet. Yeah.
welcoming you like it's home. And so I really did a lot of thinking, like, personally about, it's kind of about life and what that means, and like how that affects who I am and how that affects how I deal with people. And I don't think it really landed with me how few places that I really have that like feel like home. Like, I've been around you when you come back to New Orleans, right? I
Hmm.
see how you move, I see how you are with the people. I don't I don't have a city, like even Atlanta doesn't really feel like that to me anymore. Like, I don't have a place that feels like that. And then I realized I do have a place that feels like that, and that is the Horn. Um, when I come back and do
Wow.
Around the Horn,
Yeah.
you know, I find myself like Eric Ride Home sent me an email, or a text rather, and said something about how happy that staff was for me to be there, and how happy it was clearly that I was there.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
And like, I don't think it really, really, really dawned on me till I did the last episode I did this week. Now you have become Mr. Fuck Your Dress Code, right? That is a mantra that you took up for life about 12 years ago. You got that big contract, and you was like, man, fuck collars. I don't know what none of that is. He ain't even wearing no polo shirt. Mike Smith pulling up in the club. TV,
Dog,
like
if it
he had
requires
he
me to dress, I can't go. I can't.
yeah, he had the game. He had the game. He completely
Yo.
had the game. But I decided my last episode of Horn, I had
Yeah.
me a suit. I ain't get one of the suits I got in Vietnam, but I put that suit on. I was looking like $1,000,000. I sat
Yeah.
down in that chair and I was just like, you know, I did Horn for the first time 15 years ago. And I
Mm.
like look at the path that my career has taken, and it's been some ups and downs, right? Like me and you both, man.
Yeah.
We've been there, we've been not quite there. It
Yeah.
has not been a line. We've been
Yeah.
way up. I don't
Yeah.
think I wouldn't like way down is a tricky thing. I don't necessarily buy in that concept, but
I appreciate that.
it's
Yeah.
it's it's been a lot. It's been moves or whatever. And I realize every time I go back to do the Horn, even after the point where I realized it was like, yeah, I kind of need to move on from this place.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
this is still the crib though. Like, it's kind of wild that a show that you don't do every day, right? That you might be doing with a bunch of different people, everything else. But no matter how it's gone or no matter what happened, nah, this is it really has a home feeling.
Man, that's perfect. That's perfect. Because I did my FaceTime, and it didn't help that I was following Harry, who
Mm-hmm.
had everybody in shambles. Um, but I mean, I cry for a lot of reasons nowadays. I mean, I cry, just about anything. But I struggled to keep it together, and it was that, and I was trying to figure out why I was so emotional about it, why I feel that connection that you're talking about. It's gratitude. Um, and you're absolutely right, man. Like that show. So going to keeping with the home theme, that show is really where it all started for me. Like, I mean, I started out at the Boston Globe, which was as good a sports page in the country. When I got there, and obviously had a legacy that preceded me. So I got to the Boston Globe in 2001, and I started doing Around the Horn in 2003. I still have no idea why they would put a 24-year-old, 23, 24, whatever I was, on television next to the people I was on television with. They said deserves got nothing to do with it. I legitimately did not deserve to. I didn't have a national reputation. I hadn't been a columnist anywhere other than the Loyola Maroon in college. I didn't have a column at the Boston Globe. I was covering the Patriots. Covering the NFL. So I shudder to think of some of the dumb shit I said in my 20s. Because I think about the dumb shit I say in my 40s. Thankfully, I don't think that much of that is on YouTube. those takes, I think, have disappeared in the ether somewhere. But the doors that it opened for me, both in ESPN, to the doors to producers, the doors to executives, but the doors in the outside world. The shit that we got into, the parties that we got into from that show, the restaurants that seated us like we was in Goodfellas, okay? like just found a table, roll step right in. You know what I mean? The house that I'm in, this is the house that Around the Horn built, so to speak. I mean, Around the Horn changed my career and therefore my life. And that's what I got emotional about, because through it all, that place was always somewhere I could go and I could kick my feet up. Like I could lay back and not feel like I had to prove anything or compete with anybody. Like I felt welcomed and appreciated and understood and celebrated by Around the Horn. Just like Eric told you, they were happy to see you because there's a genuine love and affection that they have for you. It's not a transactional relationship there's a lot of shows, a lot of networks, a lot of individuals, certainly a lot of corporations, but I'm talking specifically in our industry, that make you feel like you should be appreciative of the opportunity that they're giving you. Not that you earned it, but you should be lucky because there's a million people lined up outside that would want your job or want your position. Whereas Around the Horn is like, after 23 years, hey, thanks for doing the show. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. There's a genuine appreciation they have for what Bomani Jones or Michael Smith or anybody else brings to their show. They make you feel good about yourself. Even if you ain't on your, well, some of us, not you, but even if you don't have your best day. You know what I'm saying? And so, and then like the thing I tried to say, because it's limited time and I hadn't really prepared anything. But like, it's been such an institution and it's been there for people that were a part of the show or that watched the show for 2 decades, just been there. You could count on it. Just like home. You could count on it. You could always go home. You could always turn on the TV at 5 o'clock Eastern on ESPN and hear that music and watch that show. Whether you liked everybody on it, whether you liked the show, it was there for you. It was on in the bar. It was on in the gym. It was on at home. It was just on. And I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm glad you put it that way. That was brilliant and so spot on, because both Around the Horn and you, when I went through the most difficult portion of my career, and I was just, you can call it exile, whatever you want to call it. This would have been circa 2018.
It's just 2019. We was in Vegas, that first Vegas run.
I left it. I left it. Yeah. No. I'm talking about TV. I left it 19. I'm saying like 18 when I was at ESPN, getting paid but wasn't working.
Right.
Tony Reali insisted that I sit in his seat and host Around the Horn. He was like, "Come on home." And you were like, "Yo, man, you need to do Highly Questionable." And then you had me do High Noon with you. Like, my Around the Horn family, you, Tony, Eric Rydholm, Aaron Solomon, was like, "Yo, come on home." Like, damn all that bullshit that's going on with SportsCenter and ESPN. Like, yo, you got a place that will wrap its arms around you, that will celebrate you, You got a place where the secretary that worked with your mama remembers you, knew you win. That you got a place that knew you win. Around the Horn knew me win. And that feeling that I had when I did that last show was just immense gratitude for what it's done for my career, what it's done for my family, what it's taught me. I learned how to do a lot of what I know about, or what I think I know about television. I learned from Around the Horn. People could talk about whether it was goofy and the scoring system, but and the thing I appreciated about Tony, when I talked to him, I want to give him a little bit of space, but when I talked to him, I'm gonna tell him this. The thing I appreciate about Tony, because I think it was Mina's FaceTime was just talking about Tony as a ball knower. The thing I appreciate about Tony's a hell of a writer. Tony's an incredible writer. And I think that's why he connected with all of us, yourself, Bob Ryan, Jackie McMullen, Tim Collins, writers. The show was built on writers. And that part of Tony's brain is exceptionally strong. And so he's an incredible writer. And I'm going to tell him that when I see him, but I forgot where I was going with that. But point being, it's just like that place is just such a safe haven. You know what I mean? And I'll never not be grateful for the opportunity that they gave me and just what it allowed me to do from there. Like everything I've been able to do since then. And what's crazy, and I'm sure you'll get this as well, for all you've done since then, how many people still associate you first and foremost with Around the Horn?
Yeah, number one.
Crazy, right?
Number one. All right, we're going to come right back. Got more of this. This is Michael Smith on The Right Time, talking about a bunch of stuff. We'll be back. This show is brought to you by Perplexity. Perplexity is an AI-powered answer engine that searches the internet in real time to give you fast, high-quality answers with sources. Unlike legacy search engines that respond with a list of links, Perplexity skips straight to the answers you need, explained in easy-to-understand everyday language with sources and citations.
That's right, Bo. We use Perplexity all the time in the show. For example, we looked up this week who are the shortest players in the NFL, trying to figure out how they could be successful for the Flag Football Olympics in 2028. Discover fast, reliable search with Perplexity today. Download the app or ask Perplexity anything at perplexity.ai. It's playoff time, and if you're still just watching games, you're missing out. With Pick 6 from DraftKings, you can turn your hoops knowledge into real cash. Nobody's dropping better payouts than Pick 6. Hit 6 picks, and that's 25 times your cash. And if you beat your competition, you could be looking at a 500-time bag in your pocket. And right now, new customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry. The playoffs are on, so why not take a shot making a little money while you're watching? Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and use code Bomani. That's code Bomani to play $5 and get $50 in bonus picks. Better payouts, bigger wins. Only on Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus award as non-withdrawable Pick 6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. Terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Let me tell you about ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break the byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Summer is here, which means more opportunities to celebrate the warm weather. Before that backyard barbecue brew, glass of Pinot watching the sunset at the beach, or cocktail by the campfire. Don't forget your ZBiotics pre-alcohol drink one before drinking and wake up feeling great and ready to take on the next day and all that summer has to offer. Go to zbiotics.com/Bomani to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Bomani at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/Bomani and use the code Bomani at checkout for 15% off. All right, we are back with Michael Smith. And now I wanted to ask you this. See, it's different with me with Around the Horn because I came on. So when they did the 10th anniversary special in 2012, I was the most recent addition. Like the most recent person to have been on. I wasn't the last person to start doing it before then, but I was the most recent person to be on that show.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, was the gap between me and you? Was there somebody between me and you?
I got on in 2010. That was the first show I did.
Couldn't have been 7 years without nobody different. Okay, no. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, what was different about me though was, and it may have been honestly, because when I think about the people who were on the show at that time, they had all been on there forever. I was the first person who was not a print journalist to get on, right? Like I was a dude hosting a radio show at the time. But at
the time, you had written extensively, but at the time,
right. But at the time, right. But even then, though, it was digital. Like I was, my arrival was the arrival of a different paradigm. Like the people who have been added to the show by and large since then, like we talk about before me, after me, a little tricky. But in terms of where, like what job you had before you got on there, it does change. That part absolutely changes right there. But I had a familiarity with the people on air because, I've been watching them on the show for the longest. And then you had cases like Bob Ryan, for example, who I'd seen going back on the Sports Reporters. And I tell people, and I imagine that something similar happened with you because you were at the Boston Globe, finding out that Bob Ryan was actually like that. Like this is not a guy that he turns on for television. That guy that he turns on occasionally for television, that might come up at any point in time.
Anytime. Just bring up the right subject. Absolutely.
Yes.
Bring up the right subject. He will go off.
Like I forget one time he was on something on the call and he didn't raise his voice. And he just said, there are people who think whatever this thing is, and those people are stupid. And just left it there. Because with Bob Ryan, whatever he said, he meant it.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, and that was, I mean, I didn't, the thing about youth, man, is like, and being young, talk about like takes that that probably were ridiculous back then because I didn't know shit from shit. Like that wasn't normal. And again, I appreciate, we've gone back and forth and bigging up each other. Like I appreciate you saying what you said about my career, but like while I'm doing it, I wasn't thinking, oh wow, I'm 23, 24 years old on national television on ESPN. Wow, this is such a big deal. Nor was I thinking, wow, this is fast or this is early. Like it was all what I expected. But the other part too, like it's also just time and place. Like I'm not taking anything away from myself. I mean, like I graduated college and my first job out of college was the Boston Globe. That obviously took that I had something to do with that. But one of the 5 places, I think it was 5, because it was Denver, Chicago, LA, Dallas, Boston. Yeah. One of the 5 newsrooms where they put a camera was in the Boston Globe. So if I had worked for the New York Times, which owned the Boston Globe, but if I had worked for the New York Times, if I worked for the Palm Beach Post or any of the other 29 papers out of 30, a little side note, the 29 newspapers out of 30 who didn't give me an internship in college, the Boston Globe was the one that did out of the 30 I applied for. If I'd have been at any of them, I wouldn't have been on Around the Horn. Then I was covering a team that grew exponentially in popularity overnight. I was covering the Patriots as the backup Patriots beat writer, and then some 199th pick turned the franchise around along with the greatest coach of all time. And now more people are reading my shit. So since more people are reading my shit, I'm in Paris at the World Track and Field Championships instead of training camp, which I'm the only person in history to ever be miserable in Paris with his girlfriend, future wife, at the World Track and Field Championships because I'm not at training camp. I'm pretty sure I'm the only person that ever feel that way. I get a phone call from, I think it was Newsday. Was it Newsday? I think so. I think it was Newsday. One of the New York papers wanted me to be their national NFL writer. So I was going to go from backup beat writer. I was backing up Nick Cafardo, rest in peace. I was backing up Nick Cafardo at the Boston Globe as the beat writer for the Boston Globe, on the Patriots, excuse me. And I was going to make the jump to national, which was my dream job. But Ron Borges wasn't going anywhere at the Boston Globe. So I was going to take that job and leave the Globe to go be the national NFL writer. Don Squire, my sports editor at the time at the Boston Globe, basically said, no, we want to keep you. You'll be the Patriots' lead beat writer, and we'll put you on Around the Horn, let you make some extra money.
Oh, wow. I did not know that was how it went.
That's how I got on the show. Because at the time, Bob Ryan was doing it. And think about the rotation that we had just in Boston. Like Denver was Woody. LA was Adonde, but it was Plaschke first and foremost, and then Adonde. Obviously, Chicago was Mariotti every day. Dallas was Collishaw and Blackistone. But Boston had Bob Ryan, Jackie McMullen, and Michael Holley all doing it by the time I did it. And then when I started doing it, that just changed everything. That just changed everything. But my point in saying all that is was I better than the next person? I mean, it's just the way it fell into place for me by the grace of God. That was just, I'm in literally right place, right time, covering the right team.
Hold up, let's talk about the game though. The game that Boston played. We're gonna pay you a little extra money, but it ain't even gonna be our money.
Right, we're gonna make you work for this extra money. Don't you love that?
Yeah, but no. But it's not even money out of their pocket.
No, it was
that
not.
money was coming from ESPN.
Yeah. And so that was it. And I, like I said, didn't know anything, but I say all that to say, I got off on a tangent telling you how I got to the show. I took it for granted though. And as we all do when we're young, and you don't, you're thinking about what's the next thing. I remember, if I'm being completely candid, and I think you alluded to this earlier in your path. It's like when you felt like, okay, it's time to leave home. It's time to leave the nest. I need more. There's something more for me. I'm ready for my own show. I'm ready for this, that, and the other. Right. So, just like my kids, I'm like, yo, man, y'all in a rush to get out of here. You don't want these adult problems. You don't want to have to pay your own bills. You want to be, a dependent as long as you can be. And I was the same way when I was 19 and 17 and 13. Couldn't wait to get out of my mom and daddy house until I did. I was like, damn. You ever notice how you go home more when you leave?
Yeah.
Man, I can't wait to go home. I want to eat. I want to wash my clothes. I want to sleep in my own bed. I want to not have to worry. And I remember being at Around the Horn. And the other thing that people may not know about Around the Horn is, oh my God, do they make the experience as smooth? Oh my God. You can, I don't want to say you can roll out of bed and do it, but it's like they just roll out the red carpet and do so much to put you in a position to succeed and take so much pressure off of you. Whereas, you've carried shows more than I have. You've done solo shows. Carrying your own show is basically like being out on your own and paying your own bills and taking care of yourself. Whereas at Around the Horn, you at mom and daddy house. You know what I'm saying? You good. You protected because you just have this cocoon.
Wow, you did. Wow, the laundry's done. Wow.
Oh, you cooked for me? Thank you.
I just walked in the door and there's food.
Around the Horn basically makes your bed for you. Tony Reali makes your bed. So that I can't begin. And thank you for this opportunity, because it's like that 40 seconds, whatever it was, that don't do it justice what it's meant to me in my life and the lifestyle that it allowed me to have. And since we're putting people up on game, man, I think, I'll say this and then I'll pass it back to you. Sorry to be rambling a little bit, but you alluded to this earlier. And because of how frequently you and I talk and how we talk, I knew what you meant, even though you went right past it. You talked about how you and I have had our ups and downs, and we've been way down. And you're like, but I don't really buy into that. And I know what you meant by that, because talking to you when I was going through my shit and how I felt about it at the time, or how I felt when I left ESPN, really kind of like convicted me in a lot of ways. And it shifted my thinking, because, instead of being bitter or being upset about the way things ended, talking to you, I kind of gained this appreciation about not only that it happened, but what it did for me, and the doors that it opened, and the lifestyle that it provided. Like being on ESPN, when I first left ESPN, I used to cringe when people would say, "Oh, you the dude from ESPN?" I'm like, no, not no more. No, I don't work there no more. Like, because I was still kind of like, in my feelings or whatever. Now I've grown to like love that and be like, yeah, that's me. Like, got that ESPN discount.
So this is the thing to me about like.
So thank you for helping me through that. Like,
Dude.
understanding that like my rock bottom wasn't really rock bottom in the grand scheme of things. Not that I wasn't entitled to my feelings and entitled to my frustrations, and it's all relative. But in terms of just like understanding in the grand scheme, like, that place and that show in particular changed my life.
So you were rock bottom in an ironic way, right? The reason that it was a bottom for you was because you had golden handcuffs, right? Like, you couldn't go do something else because they was paying, which is an interesting spin on the concept of rock bottom, right?
Correct.
Right?
Listen.
And so, yeah, I know it was.
Take that in a second right now.
Yeah. Like you had a thing and you was going through it, and I don't ever want to invalidate, what that did. Part. Yeah, what that part was, but that's what I mean. Like, so for me, like the way we do this job, I think people misunderstand stuff. I feel often about my career. Like, I did an interview with somebody about game theory, and they said something to me, and they said, and it didn't, it didn't end the way that you wanted it to. I was like, what do you mean? Or it didn't go the way you wanted it to. I said, what do you mean? It went exactly the way I wanted it to. They gave me one season, and they gave me 6 episodes, and I did the 6 episodes. And then they gave me another season, and it had 10 episodes, and I did the 10 episodes. I did the episodes that were in front of me, right? I did exactly what I wanted to do for those 16 episodes.
And how you wanted to do it.
Right. I did what I wanted to do. I did what I was asked to do, right? Things changed. They decided they want to go in a different direction. They get to decide how they want to do that, but I wasn't going to be mad about it. Like, you had a little more strife and beef and stuff surrounding the situation with you. But in the end, I still say, though, that being able to do things in the first place is so much more important. Like, you're not going to make me feel bad because my dream job lasted 2 seasons. You just can't. Like, that's setting myself up. Because
it came through in the first place.
Right. It came through in the first place, and then we got the affirmation of doing it again, right? Like, you can't put yourself in that place. And with Around the Horn, I remember a personal feeling of accomplishment, because the way my career gone, and I had worked at ESPN.com, and then they didn't renew my contract, and I was told by my superiors in that time, quote, "You're not ready for the big leagues," unquote. And hey, man, I ain't had the background to say he was wrong, right? Like, I don't know whether or not he's telling the truth, but my thought is, I'm not going to be back at ESPN. Yeah. That was my thought. And I crafted a career and an outlook and a brand and all of these things that were, you ain't getting this at ESPN. That was my thought and my feeling. And so for 2 years and change or so, I did that. And then when Around the Horn came, I had made a decision. I was like, hey, man, whoever calls me at this point, you're calling me to do this thing that I do. I'm not coming in to do your thing. You can get somebody else to do your thing. I had decided, though, that my approach on all the things they called me for was, I'm going to do this thing that I do, because I had the affirmation of the Morning Jones. I had the affirmation of a few other things that had happened in that time period. I had the affirmation of doing local radio. I got a thing that works for me, and I got people behind me who like this, right? And what I will always appreciate about Around the Horn was they let me live up to that. And since they let me live up to that, they let me do the thing that I did and brought it in. then that also meant when I went to highly questionable, like it was about being a team player, certainly, but what I did on the team was the thing that I do.
Yep.
And I got to do that for another 4 years.
Yep.
But it's because Around the Horn, whoever you happen to be, whether you be Woody Page or anybody else,
they embrace it.
Woody Page was not the only person that was allowed to have a chalkboard up there. If you could have come up with something like a chalkboard, you could have done the same thing if you wanted to, because your square was your square and you got to do what you wanted to do in your square. And so like allowing me at 30 years old to show up there surrounded by these people who, by the way, I don't know if you had this situation. I misunderstood who the fuck these people were. Like I didn't realize, because I'm not a newspaper guy. I didn't understand what it meant to be a columnist at the Los Angeles Times. I didn't understand
That's what I'm saying
meant
about, I don't know
to
why
even be a columnist at the Denver Post. You know? And so what that show did for you and also did for me, and I didn't fully grasp it, they let me trade on their credibility. The credibility that they had spent decades building was conferred upon me because they let me be around them.
Bingo. Spot on. Absolutely. I mean, it validated us when we didn't have the resume to do so on our own. But no, again, I'm gonna go back to this theme, man, because this is so good for me. I hope the people listen to this are getting this, and I hope they can extrapolate this lesson or inspiration and apply it to whatever they might be going through or whatever they want to go through. Because it's like, and I know, I don't know that you and Rel were necessarily saying when y'all were watching me, 2003, whatever, like that y'all wanted to do that necessarily, and y'all wanted to be there where I was necessarily. But like, I go back to the fact that you weren't there yet. And everything that you had to do between the time when you were watching Around the Horn till the time that you got on Around the Horn molded you into this person that was going to change Around the Horn. I don't know. Look, turn to your neighbor and say, your time is coming. I mean, I'm telling you, dog, like, this is a word, like, for real. Like, would you have been great if the people at ESPN the first time around would have seen your talent and said, okay, yep, we like you. We're going to put you here by this, that, and the third? Probably. But would you have been as great? You certainly wouldn't have been this dude. Like, the dude that you are, like, you made something out of nothing when nobody was giving you anything, because that's what you had to do. And then they ended up wanting that, like you just said, they wanted that very thing. They wanted that thing. Whereas if you'd have been a part of that machine, like, how much of that creativity would they have nurtured? Would they have encouraged?
Oh, no. It would have been an issue. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I realized I left ESPN in 2023, but I stopped doing television for ESPN. I want to call it 2021, right? Mm-hmm. And it's actually funny. I remember the last day that I did Around the Horn in 2021. And what had happened was I had just shot the Game Theory pilot. And that's when I realized, oh, I need to leave home now. You know what I mean? Like, I have begun to embark upon something a little bit different. I need more space. Like, I just did a TV pilot, and I'm not saying that this is how it should be, but this is just the truth. I just got through shooting something where people come and tie my shoes for me. Literally. Not because I asked them to. It's somebody's job to tie my shoes. Right? And look, I knew that was crazy. I don't want to pretend as though it was like, that's more like it. Yeah. But I was moving to a different place. Right? Yeah. If that's what we'll say. Yeah. But I realized when I started doing Game Theory that there was a level of my creativity that had been stunted in the time at ESPN, in part because you do so many things. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm doing a radio show, but this is after I did Highly Questionable. And then after I did Around the Horn, I don't have time to treat this radio show like I used to treat a radio show, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it was just, it was about doing. But after I left ESPN, I never forget this, and I tell people this story. My good buddy Adam Gold in Raleigh, North Carolina, I had done some work for them, done a little fill-in type stuff or whatever at the station already. And when they didn't renew my contract in 2007, I called him to bitch and moan a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to do some complaining. But, Adam isn't exactly an empath. That's just not how he's built. He's a good dude, but that ain't what he is. And what he had for me was, so you're saying you can do radio now? And so they put me on radio. And that's where I met Shannon, because Shannon was doing radio on the weekends in North Carolina. And so we got a Saturday show and we built it out. Right. We imaged it. We programmed it. We came, because when you do a Saturday radio show, man, your boss don't care. Your boss don't listen to that. Your boss off work. You know what I'm saying? Right. That's the thing you learn at ESPN, man. These motherfuckers ain't watching for so many of these shows. They got shit to do.
Right.
You think they ain't watching. Yeah. You think they got time at 4:00 to watch you do a fucking TV show? Right? What do you no, it doesn't work that way.
They ain't watching. It's just background.
Dan once told me this, to think about this with ESPN. He's like, look, I do a radio show and at 5:00 Around the Horn comes on and I see it with no volume. I've never listened. I've watched it, but never listened to it. And it was that was an important point. But when I was doing the stuff for the radio station, or when I was doing the Morning Jones, I had to come up with it. I had to figure it out. I was doing the audience research. I was doing the engagement. I was picking the theme song. I was myself on the computer cutting up the sound. I was making mockumentaries, calling my friends and having record parts and going on GarageBand and chopping them up, right? And then from there, it was like, Shannon, let me give you some dough and get you to do this, right? So to your point, yes, I was in a position and I was able, I had to learn how to get it all myself and to figure out this brand and figure out the voice and figure out the way that I wanted to do it. And then once I'd figured out how I wanted to do it, getting the Horn, where they ain't got time to be out here coaching everybody anyway. It's just like, yo, you got it or you don't. There's a lot of people that only did a handful of episodes.
That's true. That is true.
And I got on, and I'll never forget the day that Aaron hit me after the show, and during the show in my ear. He was like, hey, Aaron, this is Aaron. Nobody else can hear you, but I'm going to start putting you on the regular email for shows.
Yeah. Like he knew right away.
It was like, oh, he did it. I mean, he gave me a little time just to make sure, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And it really hit me, though, at that time. Locally, my guys had treated me like this. And even my folks in Toronto had treated me like this. And I think you probably had a similar feeling in the way in dealing with him. It's like, oh, these people think I could be a star. And I'd heard some people say it before, but these were the first people at that company that had ever said, nah, we think you got something here, and indulged it.
It was different.
When I'd gone too far, pulled my coat to be like, hey, little dip on your chip there, fella. You might want to chill out on this, right?
Yeah.
And they did this for all, it's so wild how many people that they did this for while never getting the public credit that, for example, PTI got. PTI is a different show. PTI is a different institution. Absolutely. But these cats were right here, right next to them, and they did it for us, man. They did it for us.
No, and they loved keeping with the home theme. They loved all their children equally. You know what I mean? It was like they, to your point about who you were sitting next to and whose credibility was conferred upon us, it's like, they treated us as though we were Bob Ryan and Woody Page. Like, okay, so there's Tony, there's Woody Page, and there's Plaschke, there's like the OGs, there's the Mount Rushmore, whatever you want to call them. But I never felt like I certainly didn't take a back seat, but I was never put in the back seat either. I was never treated as though hey, you know what? You need to defer or be quiet or, set yourself and like I said, take a back seat because, this is the Woody time. But no, it was like we were all equal. Everybody ate on that show. But real quick, before I lose this, not all I remember, when you said mockumentary, you want to know what the first word that popped in my mind is going to be? A deep cut.
Beach. Beach.
How you know? Is that for everybody? Everybody bring that up to you?
That was my favorite one. My favorite one. Yeah, beaches.
Beaches. No beaches.
Beaches, they get on the plane. We have beaches here. They get
That's
on the
just
plane. What are you
so
talking about?
that's one of those things that will forever be just in my
No,
head.
no, man. People will never. And I think about this with, especially now that I'm not like on TV regularly. Because one thing I realized I lost not being on TV as much as I used to, and Around the Horn provided this, is my parents don't get to see me on a regular basis
Oh,
anymore.
that was
You
so
know, like that's
special. Yeah.
yeah, like that's something that I really lost sight of. But I thought about it also, like you mentioned in that, Around the Horn started 15 years ago. It'd been so long ago that like I deal with more people now who don't know about this than did know it. You know what I mean? I'm dealing now with more people. They think it was always one way, right? And so you become the establishment in effect, and it's a little tough, right? Because people start rooting for it. People don't root for the house, right? Right? And like once you become the house, you ain't got nearly as many people that are behind you or whatever. But like especially when you first start doing Around the Horn, and see, I first
Oh
started
my
doing it before,
gosh.
so during social media, you didn't have
Yeah.
social media with you,
No,
so
I
it's
did
like, oh
not.
man, you got people rooting for you. You know what
Right?
I'm saying? People happy
Yes.
to see you
Yes.
there
Just
and
happy to
rooting
see
for
you.
you.
Yeah. I felt it though, even though I didn't, it wasn't, social media back then. I still felt it. It just like, and it was a different, so like whether it's Sports Center or, NFL Live or, Outside the Lines, any of the other shows. And I know Around the Horn isn't everybody's cup of tea, but there was something about Around the Horn that just seemed to hit different when people saw you on that show. And I can't, maybe you could explain it, but I can't. It was like the other stuff, maybe there was just something, I don't know, just maybe because it was more traditional, maybe it was because it was more, established. I don't know, but being on Around the Horn, just there was a cool factor to it. It was
Yeah.
because I mean, maybe because it was the first. I feel like we had a lot of fun on His and Hers in ways that people hadn't before. It's definitely in Bristol. You certainly had more fun than anybody on both Highly Questionable and High Noon. But I feel like Around the Horn, that might have been the first fun show. I don't know if there was a fun show before Around the
Yeah.
Horn. Do you remember a fun show before? I
No.
mean, Sports Nation came after Around the Horn, right? So
Yeah,
like,
no. Around the Horn. I mean, the first of all, and this is something I don't think people talk about nearly enough. Go turn on some cable news. You will see the impact of Around the Horn. You go see those 4 and 5 boxes
yeah.
on those screens. Around the Horn took it to another place by gamifying it, which was, I think, ahead of the curve in terms of where everything was going. But no. You can go. The influence of PTI is everywhere in the rundown.
Yes.
The rundown being on the screen, PTI was the first television show to do that. It completely changed how television was produced. That's something I don't think that people truly get or understand, but letting people know, oh, this
What's
thing here is coming up.
Yep.
Just wait a second. That then you started seeing that sort of thing everywhere, right? Around the Horn, really, all those people in all those places, and for better or worse, by the way, on this part, because again, not everybody's Tony Reali. It changed the game on that front. And then Woody, of course, being as he was. Like you had people like Chris Berman, Stuart Scott, who kind of had an inflection of sorts. But the Horn itself, yes, I think you're correct. It was more of a fun show. And then that gets you to like Highly Questionable, which is its own like brand of fun show. High Noon, one of the problems was we could never quite figure out how to like intersperse that dynamic because it's not that easy to do a show where the people should be taken seriously while also allowing for that other part. There's a balance between the two that is very, very, very difficult to manage.
No. But the root for part, man, that's so true. And even and I'm sure you got it when you went back, not just internally, but when you went back the other day, how many people were like, "Oh man, I saw you Around the Horn. Like, it's good to see you on there." It's like there's a warmth, man. Like, it's a special show, and I can't imagine what they're feeling. Because I mean, to do something that long and that well, and for it to end, I guess for them abruptly. I mean, you and I have both been through that, but what we were doing wasn't Around the Horn. We hadn't been at it that long. Like that's I mean, doing anything for 23 years is insane.
Yeah, but
that's insane.
But what I told them was congratulations, man.
Yeah, that's all.
I
That's it.
can't weep for you. You got 22, 23 years. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't. And the truth is we work in sports.
Yeah.
I can't be so matter of fact about these cats getting fired
Everybody got to
every
retire.
day.
Everybody
And now it's a thing because it happened to me, huh?
Hey,
right? Like, look, all the ups and downs. That's what I'm saying. All the ups and downs and everything I've had in these jobs, you ain't heard me come on here and complain about none of them because I don't. This happens to these other dudes. Like, this is what sometimes we say they need to be fired, right? Yeah. Sometimes we advocate the idea. So I told Tony, congratulations, man, because nobody, when I'm done doing this job, they not going to do an episode or no podcast that's going to sound like this. I ain't had that impact on that many people. I haven't done the things for people that they have done. And they get to say that. And
I'm sorry. I mean, and they got to go out like, geez. The send off.
They got to say goodbye, because that is the thing that people do not understand about this, especially if you worked in radio.
Correct.
Your last day, that shit looked like hard knocks. They put their arm around you. They walk you into office.
Right.
Might be Friday. Might be Monday. They like to do it on a Monday because then you don't see it coming. Right. It don't matter. Your ratings can be good. Whatever it is, they just walk you to the side and they give you that old yeller, dog. And this is how it goes.
Bring your playbook.
Yo, that's what I'm saying. So for them, I don't want to invalidate any feelings they have about the end of it. But the bottom line is it was going to end at some point, and you wasn't going to like it unless you were the one that decided that it was going to end, right? Like, that's just how all of these things go. But I congratulate them for the impact that they managed to have. And what are they going to do today? That is a question that they have not had to come up with an answer for in forever. And you know what they might do today? They might realize that they were ready to start whatever the thing was that was coming next, right?
That's
like there's a freedom, there's a time. Everybody's managed to make a decent bit of change in the course of doing this. I am inclined to think more about the behind the scenes people and where they're going to wind up going and what they're going to figure out. But nah, man, I think everybody that got to do this show got to do it and feel like winners in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of us were better. We were all better off for doing this show. And I give credit to the OGs on this because they learned how to do television with everybody watching. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that people understand this. This was not a good show when it started by the admission of everybody who worked on it. But those guys spent years in front of America, the vulnerability
getting better at being themselves
for them to do that. And they got better. So, like, for example, this is something, I don't know him, you've met him, but something that people need to understand. I don't care how you felt about Jay Mariotti. Jay Mariotti was nails on television. Jay got on there and did that show. You the one that pointed out. You ain't never seen him stammer. You ain't never seen him stutter.
I've never seen him not have something to say. Like, y'all are very similar in that regard. I've never seen him not have something to say about a subject. I've never seen him not go hard about it. So you call him Nails. His nickname used to be the Hammer. That motherfucker had one speed, and he was coming with it every fucking subject. Some of us, I would say, I'm gonna give flowers to Collar Show too. Collar Show's probably got as much, if not the widest range as anybody. But like, some of us will be like, hockey? I don't know about hockey. You know what I mean? Might just kind of lay out a little bit. You know, just like I'm gonna just throw a stat out there. I'll just kind of chill. Everything didn't matter what the subject was. Mariotti was bringing. But you're right. It was a bunch of newspaper people that this show also. Not only did a PTI change the game in terms of the rundown, but PTI and Around the Horn put writers on TV. Like, because it's really the sports reporters, and you really didn't see writers as omnipresent and ubiquitous on television as you did after PTI and Around the Horn. Because back in my day, there was this competitiveness and this disdain that writers held for television people, especially on beats. Because the TV people, you know, they with their makeup and their fancy suits, and they're all glamorous, and they swoop in and they ask the stupid ass questions in the press conference, and then you don't see them until next Wednesday. You know, and it's like, oh, they're not the real journalists. They're just taking what we write and using it for their little packages for 2-3 minutes on the evening news or whatever. Like, there was just this little print had this haughty-taughty, holier than thou viewpoint of television. Whereas television people wasn't trying to put people who had faces not even for radio on television, that didn't understand the mechanics of television, that didn't have a presence for television. Like some people, you talked about it, no disrespect, some people ain't cut out to cut. Not everybody can go from writing to television. It ain't for everybody. Like everybody doesn't have that ability to present well on television just because you're a good writer. So to your point, like they put people on now, don't get me wrong, Jackie had done a lot of television. Bob had done a lot of television, and others had done a lot of television, but they did television as reporters, not as come on and be a personality that for all intents and purposes carries a show. Come and just be you. We want you, not just your information. We want you. And we want you every day, and we're going to sell you as the stars of the show. Like when you're a print journalist, like for the longest time, it was taboo to use the word I. You are never the story. Like we're all trained at a young age that we're not the story. That's why we got a byline. You know what I mean? Even when we're columnists, it should be about the subject that we're covering. Now you're asking print journalists to be something that they're not used to being. Otherwise, they'd have probably gone into television if they could. You know, like Michael Wilbon, Tony Kornheiser, they're print journalists for a reason. You know, and so now they're on television, and that also changed the game because now you see writers on television. It's not even a thing anymore. It's part of television, and or just transitioning full time into television because of that writing background, that writing skill set. So not only did it change our lives and our careers and the people that did the show, but you're absolutely right. It helped change the industry. Like sports talk television would not be what it is today without Around the Horn, and that legacy is really all that matters. How it ended, you watch as much television as I do, if not more. Like you can't have a great TV show without a conversation about the end. And Around the Horn went out as well as anybody. I mean, that was that stretch of shows, that last show, bro, that was incredible. That was incredible. So props
I'll
to
put it
them.
like this: that show lasted long enough that there are, I feel like, 3 full generations of panelists, right? I think I include you in Gen 1. I believe that I am kind of the beginning of Gen 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you get around like right before COVID or so, you get kind of a Gen 3. Because I was on there with a bunch of people I'd never done the show with and was by far the oldest.
Was that not weird? Me too. Was that not
Yo,
weird?
I've never been the oldest anywhere. I was
That's where we at now, bro.
I was the oldest. You said that about you, but I was looking around like, yeah, this ain't my room, dog. Like it's very nice. Very hello, fellow kids.
Yeah, man, y'all have grown up.
Yes.
Like, whew, I'm not sitting at the kids' table no more. Now I'm sitting at the grown folks' table. Now I'm saying grace.
Nah. Well, man, I used to watch you in middle school. I'm like, middle school, huh?
Right.
Middle school.
Like, oh,
ain't that
it's crazy to be on. It's crazy to be on the show with you. I'm like, yo, like we are now the people. We're doing for people, or we did for people what the people that preceded us did for us. Crazy.
Yep.
Like they got people that grew up, and I mean, like this is something that I think both of us have embraced. We may not, point it out all the time, but I mean, like it's not lost on either of us in particular what we meant to people that look like us. Like Around the Horn was by far the most diverse show on ESPN. By far. Around the Horn was putting people of certain groups on before anybody was. Around the Horn was doing it. And like you said, you didn't necessarily have to check certain boxes on your resume for them to feel like you were worthy of Around the Horn. You have to work a certain place for them to feel like you're worthy of Around the Horn. Like how many young Black people watched us in middle school or in high school and said, yo, I could do that, or I want to do that, just like us watching Stuart Scott or Ralph Wiley, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, that show's a game changer.
I will admit before we go, I prefer when they look at me and say, I want to do that rather than I can do that, because I know the people that I looked at doing television that made me say I can do that. And brother, it was not a compliment. It was.
That's real.
If I looked at
That's
you,
real.
it was like, shit, I could do that.
Shit.
Yeah, as I say, it's just like, hey, let anybody on TV. If you see me, you're like, wow, that inspires me to get my game up and do the same thing. All right, baby, I feel you. You look at me and be like, I can do that. My response is, are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what you try to say? What you try to say about your boy?
Yeah, by all means, man. No.
Hey, man, Michael Smith, my brother. I love you, man.
Love you too, man.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Still doing it. You are still that dude, man.
Thanks,
still
man.
that dude.
Thank
and
you.
I don't care, I don't care what they say about you.
They saying anything? Look, they saying anything? I'll take it. I don't think they saying anything.
Hey, man.
Irrelevance is the enemy. But no, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thank you.
No
Always
problem, man.
you.
I will talk.
This is like coming on. I'm sorry. This is like coming on for me. Honestly, like I don't do a lot of this. I don't do much of anything for a lot of reasons nowadays. But like the right time, always got time for the right time, and it's like coming home talking to my brother, man. That's all it is. Like we kicking it at the kitchen table. That's it.
Whenever you want to fall through, brother, the door is always open.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, bro.
All right, man. No problem, man. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this 3 times a week. Ryan Brumley handling everything behind the scenes. Thank you, sir. Remember, follow The Right Time. Subscribe, like, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars. I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. We'll talk to you guys in a couple of days. Take it easy.